For as long as I can remember, people have asked one question that seems impossible to answer. Science or God? Who is right? And every time the question comes up, the room gets quiet. People look down. Some smile nervously. Others roll their eyes. It's one of those topics that can instantly divide a group. But if you stop for a moment, breathe, and really listen, you'll realize something surprising. Most people aren't arguing about truth. They're arguing about fear, identity, and meaning. This documentary isn't about proving one side wrong. It's about understanding why this question even exists, and why billions of people around the world feel pulled between two worlds that shouldn't be enemies in the first place. Our story starts with a simple observation. Human beings are curious. Curious enough to ask what's beyond the stars, but also curious enough to close their eyes and pray to something bigger than themselves. We look up at the sky and wonder how it works. But we also look inward and wonder why we are here. That's where the tension begins. In the first few minutes of this journey, I meet two people whose stories shape everything that follows. One is a scientist, Dr. Ravi, gentle voice, glasses pushed too far up his nose, a man who laughs softly before every explanation, like he knows he's about to say something complicated, but will try not to overwhelm you. The other is a religious teacher, Father Emmanuel, with warm eyes and a calm presence that makes you feel like you're safe just listening to him speak. Two men from different worlds, yet both searching for the same truth. Dr. Ravi tells me, science doesn't hate God. Science just hates not knowing. And he smiles, because for him, mysteries are exciting. They're puzzles waiting to be solved. He talks about stars exploding billions of years ago, about tiny particles dancing in ways that break the rules of common sense. He explains how science advances by asking questions, by doubting, by testing, by proving. If the universe has laws, he says, then we should try to understand them. That's what science is. Then I sit with Father Emmanuel. He listens to my questions quietly before answering. Faith, he says, is not the opposite of science. Faith begins where human understanding stops. He explains that people don't pray because they hate science. They pray because the human heart needs meaning. Science explains how things work. Faith explains why we care. He tells me stories of people finding hope in the darkest moments of their lives, hope no equation could provide. For a moment, I wondered if they were both talking about the same universe, just in different languages. As the documentary continues, I begin exploring history. Thousands of years ago, ancient civilizations looked at the sky and believed the stars were gods watching over them. Before science existed, people created stories to explain lightning, rain, sickness, and death. They weren't stupid. They were trying to make sense of a world that felt frightening and unpredictable. But then, science grew. Slowly, carefully. It started explaining things. Lightning wasn't a divine punishment. It was electricity. Sickness wasn't a curse. It was caused by bacteria and viruses. The Earth wasn't flat. It was a floating sphere in an endless cosmic sea. At this point, many people assumed science and God were now enemies. But the more I listened to experts, the more I realized that the conflict isn't really between science and God. It's between human expectations and human interpretations. When I ask Dr. Ravi if science disproves God, he shakes his head. Science isn't designed to answer spiritual questions, he says. Science can measure atoms, but can it measure love, meaning, purpose? Those are different tools for different tasks. Later, Father Emmanuel surprises me by admitting something most religious leaders avoid. Many things people once attributed to God, he says, were simply gaps in human understanding. If God exists, he doesn't need to hide in the gaps. His voice is gentle but firm. Faith should not be threatened by knowledge. As the documentary progresses past the 20-minute mark, I start showing real people, scientists who believe in God, religious leaders who study science, ordinary people who find peace in both. A Muslim doctor who prays 5 times a day before performing surgeries. A Hindu physicist who sees the laws of the universe as divine architecture. A Christian engineer who builds solar panels. A Buddhist monk who studies neuroscience. A young atheist who admits he still wonders about life after death. Their stories make one thing clear. Human beings don't fit into neat boxes. We are complicated. We hold questions and beliefs at the same time. We doubt and hope in the same breath. At 30 minutes in, I dig deeper into cosmic questions. The beginning of the universe. The Big Bang. The expansion of space. The fine-tuning of universal constants. Scientists admit the universe is unbelievably precise. Too precise to be random, some say. Others say randomness is misunderstood, that infinite universes could exist. Then I ask Father Emmanuel what he thinks about the Big Bang. His answer shocks me. If the universe had a beginning, he says, that doesn't threaten belief. It supports it. Something must cause beginnings. I turn to Dr. Ravi, expecting disagreement, but he nods. We still don't know what caused the Big Bang, he says. We may never know. 2 men, different backgrounds, same acceptance of mystery. The next section focuses on evolution, perhaps the most controversial topic in this debate. I visit a biology lab where researchers show me fossils millions of years old. They explain natural selection, adaptation, mutation. The evidence is overwhelming, detailed, undeniable. But when I speak to religious scholars, many of them aren't against evolution. They interpret sacred texts symbolically, not literally. They say creation stories describe spiritual truths, not scientific timelines. At 40 minutes in, the documentary shifts tone. It becomes more personal. I sit alone in a dark room, reflecting on everything I've heard. Science is brilliant at explaining how. Faith tries to answer why. And maybe the real conflict doesn't exist in the universe. Maybe it exists inside us, in our struggle to balance logic with emotion, knowledge with fear, facts with meaning. I begin interviewing people who changed their views over time. A former atheist who became religious after a near-death experience. A former believer who became a scientist after questioning everything. A man who lost his faith after tragedy. A woman who gained hers after surviving one. Their stories reveal something uncomfortable. Human beings believe in what gives them comfort, purpose, and strength. Science gives us control. Faith gives us hope. Both are needed. As the documentary approaches the final 10 minutes, I return to Dr. Ravi and Father Emmanuel one last time. I ask them both the same question. So, who is right, science or God? Dr. Ravi smiles softly. The universe doesn't care what we believe, he says. It simply is. Science is our way of learning its language. Father Emmanuel looks thoughtful. God does not fear science, he says. If he exists, he created the very laws science studies. I realize neither of them answered directly. And maybe that's the point. The final scenes show the vastness of space, slow shots of galaxies stretching like glowing rivers, Stars being born in clouds of gas, planets forming, comets passing silently. The universe is so big that human arguments feel tiny in comparison. Yet in the middle of that cosmic ocean sits the human heart, fragile, searching, questioning. Maybe the real truth is this: science seeks understanding, faith seeks meaning. Both seek the same thing, truth. But truth is not a weapon, it's a journey. So who is right? Maybe the answer is not science. Maybe it's not God. Maybe the answer is the question itself. Because as long as we are asking it, we are still learning, still searching, still evolving. And that is what makes us human. The documentary ends not with certainty, but with humility, a reminder that the universe is bigger than all of us, and the search for truth is far from over.